And we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Firehose Project info session about our software engineering program. I'm Marco. I'm going to run you guys through our info session today. First, let's dive in. What are we going to cover, right? To start out, I always want to talk about why we're doing this. Like, what's the reason behind becoming a software engineer, diving in, doing web development, and learning how to code. Then I want to talk a little bit about our introduction course, our intro course, our bootcamp prep course, talking about how that helps you, what happens in there, and I know a lot of you are already coding in that. And then I go into the full program and run through what are we doing in terms of like teaching web application development, what are we doing about algorithms, data structures, what happens in our agile team project, and how all of that prepares you to be job ready and be a high impact employee from day one. Now, let's dive in, but before I do that, I'm going to answer questions that you guys have at the very end. So if you have anything coming up, I know some of you already emailed me, which is awesome, and I'm going to go through some of the questions. If you have any other questions, either email me through the email that you received or use that little chat box next to me on the Google, on the YouTube page, and I'll check that as well and answer questions as well. Now, let's dive in. Why are we doing this, right? And I think there's like two main reasons why learning how to code, becoming a software engineer or web developer is so important and so valuable today. I think the first one is they're extremely in-demand skills, right? If we're looking at the big trends, the data that we have for the markets right now in the US alone, there's hundreds of thousands of jobs that are open right now that are unfilled for skilled technical workers, right? That means that software engineering and web development are in extremely high demand. And if you have those skills, it's going to be pretty easy for you to get into those jobs, comparatively speaking, looking for other jobs, and also having that growth of that entire industry behind you and riding that wave that is only going to go up. And riding that wave is something that is really awesome. But I think what's even better, what's even more important is the feeling of building something that impacts a lot of people's lives, right? If we're looking how companies like Airbnb, which is actually built by Ruby on Rails, which is what we're teaching you, or Uber or Lyft, changing the way we live, how we rent out our apartments, how we transport, how we move around as people, as citizens in a city, across the country, across the world. That is what software engineers are doing, and being part of that revolution, part of that change, right? There is that saying that software is eating the world, and being part of that is something that is really impactful, really meaningful to a lot of people. And then changing people's lives for the better is something that is like a reason why to wake up every single morning and go to work and write code and build the products that touch a lot of people's lives and improve their lives, right? And if you want to go all the way, you can look at what SpaceX is doing, building reusable rockets so we can fly out to Mars and colonize Mars, right? This is like, whoa, way out there. But guess who writes the code for the rockets so they can actually fly? These are, again, software engineers, right? So everything is touched, like as far-fetched as colonizing different planets to actually calling and hailing a cab to get around town easier. Now, that's why we're doing this, right? This is the future and it's not going to stop. And having that in-demand skill is actually really, really valuable. Now, let's zoom all the way over to what we're doing here, how we get you there, right? To eventually maybe write some source code for a rocket to land on a thing in the middle of that, on a little ship in the middle of the Atlantic, right? But intro course, that's how we want to start you out. That's our preparation course to get you ready for our full program. The intro course, I know a lot of you guys who are watching right now are already coding there, so thumbs up to you. If you have not signed up, go to firehoseproject.com and sign up right now for slotted intro course. It's free, 2 weeks. If you need more, you can extend by another 2 weeks. Go through, learn how to build a portfolio page, learn how to write your first Ruby script, submit your code, we review it, give you feedback on that. If you get stuck, there's a forum, you can ask for help. While you go through that, right, I just mentioned you build a portfolio page, so that's kind of like starting with the foundation where you learn HTML and CSS, but you're actually putting it to good use by building a portfolio page that you can later use to showcase all your work. We're actually going then into having you write Ruby code and Rails code, Ruby code, and solving coding challenges that we review and give you feedback, and we actually make you take that code and put it on your portfolio page in the end, right? So 2 weeks completely free, you walk away with a portfolio page. I think that's a pretty good deal, and I hope you like it too, and the people who are in there are really excited about it. So If you haven't signed up for the intro course, do that right now and go through it. Start working in coding fundamentals. If you go with us or somebody else, doesn't matter. That will help you definitely. Now, let's talk about the full program, right? So there's kind of like two strands or paths that we're running you through. And one of them is a web application development, where we teach you how to build web applications with Ruby on Rails and JavaScript. Now, the other one is our algorithm, our data structure sections. At the very end, those two merge together, and we go into the Agile team project, where we need to apply both skills, the web application development skills, as well as the algorithmic skills. Now, let's talk about the web applications first, and I mentioned talk a little bit about the algorithms, what we're doing there, and then I round it up by how all of these skills combine and how we apply them during our Agile team project and what happens there. Now, the web application development, right? We start out pretty simple. First week of the full program, we want you to build a fully functional web application. It's a simple quote generator. We generate a quote, store it in the database, we pull it out and randomly show it on the website. Then we make it so it looks good on mobile, tablet, and desktop, and laptop as well. It's kind of like this responsive mobile first design principles that we put in there. And that way you can share it with your friends and your families and get feedback and have them enter quotes into your database through your app interface. That is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Most students finish in a couple of days, but you already get a really good overview over how Rails and Ruby work together, how to integrate HTML and CSS into your application and the entire web application framework, how to use Git and GitHub. We do that all in the first week. Then we move on and build a bit more of a complicated web application, and this one is a Yelp clone. It's all about geolocation and locating things on a map, right? So students customize that app for anything from like the best parks for dog in Atlanta to the best climbing spots in the US, the coolest places to chill out in New York City. It's a bustling city, best playgrounds for children in London, right? Students from across the world use that app to make something that they care about and then share that with their friends and family, right? The features that we're talking about in that app is pretty much taking an address, translating it into latitude and longitude, passing that to the Google Map API so you get a pin on the map. And then obviously we need to rate that, star ratings of that place. We need to have user comments so there's interaction happening. We need to send automated email notifications. If somebody comes up and puts up a new climbing spot, somebody rates that. It'd be cool if the app sends an automated email to the person who put in a new climbing spot saying like, hey, Joey just came to your place and rated it 5 stars and said, hey, super good, the weather was awesome last week, right? We need to get that user interaction going and send in email notifications. And then we also have a dashboard for each user that signs up for your platform to see what kind of comments they received, how many, what kind of ratings, right? Do a little bit of analytics and metrics there. That all probably takes students about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks in the program. Then we move it one step up and we build a two-sided marketplace. And when I say two-sided marketplace, the example that we're doing is an educational marketplace where we have instructors on one side and students on the other side. The instructors, they're gonna go and be able to create courses, upload video content, and stream video content. And the students on the other side are able to purchase these courses and browse these courses from the instructors. So that's why it's two-sided, right? Instructors on one side, students on the other side. Instructors create, students purchase. And when I say purchase, that's already a pretty good keyword to one of the key functionalities inside of that application, and that is dealing with payments and having payments go through the app. So you as the application creator need to be able to accept debit and credit card payments. And we integrate with the Stripe API to make that happen while you build out that application. And obviously, we go very deep into the database into that application because we need to figure out the relationships between the different types of users in an application, right? That means the students and the instructors. So who paid for which course is only allowed a preview versus the full access, how does the payment flow through the entire platform? And those database relationships are really important for us to understand as developers, and we do that right in the application. Now I move on, and next thing we're building is another application that we do test-driven development with, right? And that's the way the industry works. As zooming out software engineers, web developers, what we want to do is write automated software tests to make sure that all of our features that we're building are working at any given moment, right? So the equivalent would be if we didn't write automated software tests is after every time we build a feature, we go through our entire application, click on every little button, check every little link, check every little page, and make sure nothing is broken. writing tests for every little feature that we ship, make sure that everything is still running and we can automatically run those tests and basically have the computer pressing all the buttons and check that it's working. Test-driven development, which again is the industry standard, it's the bread and butter as a developer engineer, is taking it one step forward where we first write the test before we have the feature. Therefore, the test will fail, and then we build the feature, and then the test will pass. And that's one way, and a very popular, again, industry standard of doing testing in the real world. And we teach you that, build an application entirely with that concept in mind, using testing. The tool that we're using is RSpec, again, industry standard, and something that's really important for you to know when you go through. So that test-driven development is is an entire track where we go through. Next up, we go into JavaScript. So first we taught you Ruby, Rails, right? The Ruby language, and then we're building a JavaScript app from scratch using nothing but JavaScript. And that's really the deep dive into JavaScript. So you have 2 programming languages under your belt. Really good at Ruby, and then you understand how to use JavaScript to build additional apps. And we also teach you how to use JavaScript to improve the user interface for existing application like Rails application, where we build drag and drop interfaces in some of the apps that you already built. These are kind of the apps that we build in the web application tracks. Now, in parallel, we have you run through our algorithm section, right? And we're starting out pretty simple. Like if you think about what we've done in the Ruby section in our intro course, in our prep course, that is basically the extension of it, right? And we start out with simple coding challenges, and then we move further and further along towards more computer science fundamentals that are important not only for the technical interview, but also to understand how to write complex code and integrate that into existing Rails applications, right? We do anything like search algorithms, we do anything sorting algorithms, and how to write those and solve for those, and then get that advanced Ruby code and write that and review that with your mentors. And I'll talk about the mentors and how all the support works in a bit. These are the 2 paths. They converge where we want you to apply both of the skills, the web application development skills and the data structures and the algorithm skills into one. We do that by having you work on an agile team project, right? At that point, I always like to zoom out and say, why are we doing the agile team project, right? And if you think about how web application software is built in the real world, it's built by amazing teams. Knowing how to be part of such a team from day one is really important. And that's why we're doing that already in the program. So you have a full 8 weeks where you're under the wing of a senior web developer who acts as the CTO or VP engineering inside of the group project, of the agile team project, right? So that's outside of your one-on-one mentorship session. We'll give you another mentor who runs your entire group through. So we match you with 4 to 5 students, and we're building a chess game inside of a Rails application. Now, a lot of people oftentimes tell me, oh, come on, Marco, chess game, that's not really exciting. Well, the reason why we choose a chess game is because we asked our mentors, right? And we have over 100 on our platform teaching our students across the world, what would impress you if you were looking to hire somebody? And they said something that's really complicated to implement. Right? So if you're thinking about the Yelp clone that we're building, that's technically not that hard to implement because all these problems are solved already. Now, once we suggested a chess game to our mentors, they were like, wow, this is hard because if I just think about how many rules there are in a chess game and how to implement them and write the code for it so everything is working at any given moment, that's really hard and that's a technical challenge. And being able to solve technical challenges is what you're going to be paid every single day as a developer or software engineer. So showing that capability of doing that before you apply for a job, and you've already done that, and you have proof about that in your GitHub, in your coding portfolio, that's really what's going to set you apart. And that's the reason why we spent a full 8 weeks on the Agile Team Project. So how does that work in the actual project, right? So what that means, that Agile, is that we consistently build features, build code, review the code, get feedback, and then ship it live and start that cycle of building, reviewing, testing, and shipping live over and over again. And we try and do that as fast as possible. So if you work with your team, that means that you may be assigned a ticket, a story, a feature together with Emma, and that feature may be figure out the database architecture for this application, or figure out how can we move pieces across the board, or how can we simultaneously show the other party playing that a figure is moving. which API, which tool could we maybe integrate, or do we want to build that from scratch? And these are the decisions that you need to make in the real world every single day. And we're making that with you under the wing of a senior developer right in that intro course. And that's the experience that you get out. And now from stepping one step back and think about how that relates to your job search and you finding a job, right? It relates to the fact that if you are a technical hiring manager and what you're looking for is, can somebody hit the ground running from day one? Is that a high impact employee? And if you can demonstrate that you already know how to work together with the team, that you already know the web developer workflow, that you know how to give feedback and receive feedback on your code and improve your code, and you can demonstrate that in your coding portfolio, that is huge. Because if I have to choose as a hiring manager between two people, one person who knows how to work together as a team, who can start fixing and building things on day one, and somebody hasn't done that, the choice is absolutely clear. I always pick the one who knows how to code and work together with other developers and integrate themselves in a team, right? Again, the best software is built by amazing teams, and being part of that team and knowing how to do that is absolutely crucial to landing a job and setting yourself apart from other people who don't have that experience. And when I look around, who else is doing this? Who else spends 8 weeks under the wing of a VP of engineering? I don't see a lot of programs who actually put the effort into it. That's why there's a huge difference between our graduates and other graduates from other programs. And that's just a matter of fact of spending the 8 weeks dedicating themselves to learning how to work as a team and building something really complex that, again, is a lot more complex than a Yelp clone or any of the other apps that we're doing before. Now, let's talk a little bit about the job search and how that helps you, right? I already talked about an Agile Team Project, how that sets you apart. The other thing that's really important that you also get out of that Agile Team Project is like the coding portfolio. I mentioned that a few times, but if you apply for a job, right, we give you the resume review, we check your LinkedIn, we do mock interviews with you, right? We do all the standard stuff. We also give you the strategies of how to actually look for jobs, which job sites to look, how to set your entire strategy to find the jobs, how to network, which events to go to, and how to position yourself and brand yourself as a developer so you're actually looking attractive and your resume doesn't get put to the bottom of the stack but stays on the top. So we give you the strategy so you can consistently repeat that and actually find the jobs that work best for you. But at the essence, the coding portfolio is kind of like that centerpiece, and we refine that throughout the Agile Team Project, where you have pull requests. Think about that as organized buckets of code, where you build a complex feature, you wrote the code for that, you wrote your tests, right? Again, think about test-driven development, automated software testing, how that's the industry standard. You build that too, you wrote that code, then you got the review of your code and you got feedback verbally, then I can see how you reacted to that feedback and how open you were to the feedback. And then I see your code on top of that, how you improved your entire feature, the code base that you wrote based on the feedback that you received earlier. And seeing that helps a technical hiring manager, CTO, to make a decision really fast because they can imagine how you fit into their team really, really fast. And having that is really what sets you apart as well, right? So think about that. When you're looking at jobs, it's like our entire job track gives you the strategies and the techniques to not only network, find the jobs and how to apply it, the resume review and the technical review, but it takes your coding portfolio and it presents it in a way that it makes it really easy for a technical hiring manager to make the yes decision to bring you in for a technical interview. And at that point, you're training that you went through the algorithm and data structure sections, tracks, and the computer science fundamentals, right? That's what you tested when you're in the room. And believe it or not, a lot of our students actually go through and show, in the interview, show off what they did on the chess app and actually run the interviewees and the developers on the team through their code and what they've built. Because again, we asked our own developers what would be exciting for you, and they said a chess game would be awesome. And we see that over and over again. When our students interview, they're like, wow, I actually only talked about my chess game, which was a lot of fun. It was a lot easier than doing silly things on the whiteboard where I had to code. I'd much rather talk about my existing code. Now, that was pretty much the program, right? From the intro course all the way through our full program, the web application track, the algorithmic track, and how they combine into the Agile Team Project. And if you walk away with one thing from that info session, I hope that it is you understand how important it is to work together as a team and why we're doing this for full 8 weeks and how it sets you apart during your job search at the very end. Now, I want to see if I have some questions. So If I haven't answered anything, throw it in there, and I'll give my best to answer. I already received some questions, but I quickly want to check what I received here. So let me quickly walk up to my computer, check on the YouTube page and see if we got any comments there. What is loading for me right now? I received no questions there, so let's see, but I received some via email, so let's check that out. Cool. People coding on the intro course while we're doing this. Love it. Love the enthusiasm and excitement. That's awesome. Okay, so here's some question. I get that pretty much every week. Somebody asks that, which is a really good question. Is like, you know, how are you different than some of our competitors? And I answered that in a moment because it's another good question, which is like, are you teaching algorithms as well? Yes, I just explained that, right? That's a full-on track that we're teaching. And how long have you been doing this? We've been doing this for well over 3 years. We had hundreds and hundreds of students, I think well over 500, actually go through our entire full program, and thousands all over the world coding through our intro session and learning the fundamentals there. So when we started out teaching in person, right? We taught at like Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, Brown University, Rhode Island School of Designs. We were in New York, we were in Boston. And we took all these lessons that we learned from the classroom and put them into our online learning platform. And so when I say we engineered our platform to make things click for you, that's what I mean. These hundreds and hundreds of students that we taught in the classroom, we took all these lessons and put them in. So if you go through the Firehose Project, you will notice that things are presented to you in a different way. You're coding and you're like, things are not clicking right now here. We tell you, keep going, it will make sense in a moment. And then we give you maybe a video, maybe a little bit of an overview explanation. All of a sudden things start clicking. And that's what I mean when I say we engineered our entire platform to make things click for you, for our students. That's what we're seeing every single day when students code through, and that comes from our rich background teaching web application and software engineering at those schools. Now, let's talk a little bit about how we're different, right? I usually say that there's 3 reasons of why we're different, and I think the first one is the depth of our curriculum, right? I talked about that at full length. It's like the web application strength, the algorithms and data structures. I don't see people teaching this computer science fundamentals, which are so important to build advanced and complex web applications down the line. So that depth of the curriculum and the Agile Team Project, I don't see that combination happening out there at any other program. So having that depth of the curriculum that not only touches on Ruby, Rails, and JavaScript, but also test-driven development and Git and GitHub and includes the full stack development, that's something that I don't see. The second one is our mentors, right? If we're looking at who we're having as mentors and who we're matching, it's something we hear consistently. If you look at our reviews, be it on Quora, be it on Facebook, be it on Course Report or SwitchUp, you hear that over and over again, how great the mentors are. And we take big pride in how we recruit our mentors and how we train them up and who they are, right? They're senior developers from places like Shopify, PayPal, eBay, Product Hunt, young tech companies, major companies like CNN or BCC. And these mentors are taking you under their wing for the full duration of the program, right? You meet with them, you pair program with them, and they're part of that support structure that we have. There's the one-hour mentorship session, there's our weekly office hours, there's our Q&A forum. If you're in an intro course, you can already test those things. If you have questions, if you get stuck, ask a question, scroll down to the bottom of the lesson, take a screenshot of the error message, we get back to you super fast, help you out so you're unstuck, so you can use every minute that you're dedicating to coding to actually moving forward and never just spinning your wheels, right? So that's part of our entire support system as well. And then I don't want to say last but not least, but it's the student community that we're having, right? We have a Slack channel, always filled with people talking to each other, meeting up for pair programming sessions, doing a group project. You're gonna do that naturally, and you have a Slack channel where you communicate with your team. I mean, it's just like you would do in the real world. Here at Firehose Project, we have a Slack channel too, where we talk with developers all the time when we're coding, even if we sit close by. It's just like a good way of keeping everyone informed what's happening on features that we're building on the code base, right? And then we also have open source projects where our students actually meet up and code together and build something together. And then we also have lightning talks. These are regular talks that we're having about once every 6 weeks to 8 weeks. All of our students come together and they give talks about topics that they're passionate about, right? We had designers that coded with us that taught people how to design as a developer, how to design for developers. We had tools for continuous deployment and integration dissected by our students because they installed both, right? CodeShip, Travis CI. These are tools that I use every single day in the real world. And then we talked about like debugging tools like Pry, right? These are talks. I learn a lot every single time when I go to our lightning talks and listen to our students. And that's that community that you're getting, right? So when you're graduating, you always have that community to fall back on, and it's worldwide. So no matter where you are, you always find people that either meet up with you at meetup groups or are there for you to answer questions. Now, let's see if we had any other questions. Again, right, depth of the curriculum, the mentors, the senior web developer mentors that we have, and our student communities, I think are three of the most important distinct differences between us and other people. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. For questions today, I can't see anything coming up on the YouTube page. I hope this worked. All right, that's pretty much it that I have for today. If you have any questions, email me. You should have all received an email from me by now. Also, if you go into the intro course, we have our student success person, Brita, reach out to you, check in with you, make sure you're all good. If you're not on intro course yet, jump in there, watch it. It's really well, go through code with us. It's really well worth it to get your portfolio page up and get your Ruby code in there and actually work on your coding skills and use us to give us feedback and help you out. That's pretty much it for today. Thanks so much for coming to the info session. Thumbs up, happy coding, and see you next time. Bye.